So I'm Charlene Dukes. I President Emerita of Prince George's Community College, and I actually am the founder and principal of the Dukes Group, LLC. It's a company that allows me to do what I've loved to do for the last 42 years, and that's work with rising presidents, do executive coaching, and do some board development to help boards understand their roles and around strategy and duty of care, loyalty, and trust to the companies over which they have governing oversight. I will tell you, I went to my first years in college. I went to a predominantly white institution. I started college at a time when affirmative action and lots of colleges were trying to recruit students of color as their both commitment to affirmative action and looking at diversifying their student populations. And I will say that my experience at what ended up being my alma mater that first year was not a great one. Went to an institution where they saw very few students of color. We weren't the first, but we were the largest class of entering freshmen, about 200 students of color at a campus then that was probably serving somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 students. So it was an adjustment for those of us who made that decision to attend. It was an adjustment for those for whom that institution had always catered to a predominantly white population. So I actually left college after my first year. I moved to New York City, because it just was not an experience that I was used to. I wasn't used to being calling names, and some of them were the worst names that anyone in the audience could imagine. And so I left. I worked for Bell Telephone. That tells you how long ago it was. And I also worked for Chase Manhattan Bank. I worked on the 33rd floor of Tower 1 in the city. And worked there about 4 years. And I remember saying to my supervisor at the time, I believe that I've mastered this job and I deserve a promotion. I've been a great employee. I'm on time. I do my work. I think I have a great attitude about it. And he looked at me and he said very seriously, the only reason we hired you is because you had 1 year of college. If you want to grow in this company or any other company, you need to go back and finish your degree. He told me that in October of 76, and by January of 77, I had re-enrolled in college, and as they say, the rest is history. My first job as an admissions and financial aid officer was at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. You know why I got the job? Because the advertisement said, we are looking for an admissions and financial aid counselor. We want to make sure that the person has good oral and writing skills. And I thought, I have a degree in English. I should be able to do that. And again, as they say, the rest is history. That's how my career began in higher education. And from there, I was Director of Admissions and Financial Aid, the Registrar, the Minority Affairs Coordinator, Special Assistant to the President. So, again, that began a trajectory where I ended up serving 13 years as the President of Prince George's Community College. So, you know, it's been an exciting time and lots of community service in between. Well, when I went to college, I actually wanted to teach English. And it was probably in that first year, I met with my advisor, a faculty member, and I said, I've been going through the schedule of classes, and I'm looking for classes in grammar. I said, I love the written word, so I was not into creative writing or the classics. But, I'd love to understand what's a complete sentence. You know, how do you deal with indirect objects, direct objects, infinitives, parallelism? I wanted to do all of that. And I said, I just want to make sure that when I'm in the classroom, I'm teaching young people how to write properly. And he said, we expect you to know how to write when you get to college. So we don't teach those courses here. And but I stayed on the path of English even when I went back to college because I wanted to teach. And as I was pushing my resume and my transcript around to, I would say, public schools across the state of Pennsylvania, predominantly rural, I will say small towns, I always received the call for an interview. But it was when I walked into the room that those who were interviewing me realized that I was a woman of color, that everything changed. All of a sudden, the job they thought they had available was no longer available. And I was pretty disheartened for a moment until I remember my dad sitting down. I was sitting on the bed, and he said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Dad, I just feel like I've come back. I've done everything that was expected of me. I've gotten a degree. I graduated, summa cum laude, but I don't know what's going on here." And he said, "What's going on is you're facing the real world." And he said, "And don't worry about it because something will come your way and your mom and I will always be here to support you." And I felt like I needed to be a role model to my younger brothers and sisters. So, I received a call out of the blue from a friend, and he said, "I saw your father, and he said that you're still looking for something. There's going to be this position opening at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, and you should apply." So I will say to you that my interest was not in higher education. It really was in K-12. And but it rolled into my lap. I picked it up and I ran with it. And as most would say, the rest is history around those kinds of things. I always say you have to recognize it, but you also have to figure out where is your place and your voice in all of those things. Young people today are probably much more authentic, if I can use that terminology, than I was, because there were things that I put up with then that I would never do today. So sometimes you have to be wise enough to confront it, to call it what it is, and then to say, where do you want to be within that place and space? How do you want to educate others? How do you want to pull them into the fold and say, understand me as a person, as to who I am and what I have the opportunity to bring to the table? So I admire that all the time, that they are just so much more outspoken than it took me a while to get there. So I walked around for a long time with a chip on my shoulder. And then what I realized is that, you got to be stronger, you have to be tougher, you have to be wiser. And then you also have to be calm about it and say, we don't have to get into these verbal confrontations around things. What we need to do is sit down and understand where each one of us is coming from and how that can all work together I think, for a better humankind. I worry about the things that are going on today across our country and across our world, will we have a world within the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 years? What is it that I can expect for my grandson, who will be 2 years old in December, and wanting to ensure that what he inherits is something that we have taken the time and the energy and the thoughtfulness to give to him so that he can make sure it's a better world for his grandchildren when they come after him. Well, I think very basically for me is because the community gave to me. I can remember all kinds of things, as women. When I was in college, I had a friend of the family that I would go to a place as simple as the hairdresser. We called it that then. Maybe today we call them salons, hair salons. My entire time in college, I never paid for it because what she said is that, no, you're in college and You don't have to pay anything for this. I'm going to do this for you. But what I want you to do is to pay it forward. So I've had all of those kinds of experiences, as simple as grooming, to as much as one of my college professors in my doctoral program. I didn't even want to start the doctorate because I didn't have the money, and I didn't want to take out any more loans. And he called me one day and he said, I have found some financial resources for you. So would you please complete that doctoral application and get it over here by the end of the week, and we will make sure that this happens for you. I never paid anything for that program, but I made a commitment that I was going to do the best that I could do in my courses because he went out on the limb for me. And so I think when you think about service to community, you'll always want to do it in such a way that what you bring to the table has the opportunity to not just elevate the discussion, but to make that service better, the outcome of that service better. I think that everyone will tell you the first is that when students walk across the stage with their caps and gowns on, how can you not help but be proud and happy both for them and with them? Because their trajectories and their journeys through this work has been more than even we could possibly imagine. I talk about my own childhood, but I know that in many ways things have not changed, especially when you think about ongoing hunger and not just hunger, but this level of comfort that we want to cloak our students with. And when you see someone who is as young as 14 or 15 years of age getting an associate degree, and conversely, you see someone who's in his or her 80s, who have done the work and just stayed committed to it, to be able to walk across that stage at the same time. Absolutely, that was one of the best times for me because I felt like it was worth it. These, 1,000 young people who are graduating every year, they're saying to us that what we poured into them was worth it and that they appreciate it and they can take that foundation on to whatever is next for him or her. Sometimes with an 80-year-old person, it's just being able to say to their grandchildren, if I can do this, you can do it too. For others, it was about transferring to some of the most prestigious colleges and universities, not just across our region, but across the country. And for some, it was just to say, I did it, and no one was going to stop me. But there's a lot of work that goes into that. It doesn't just happen overnight. You work with faculty, you work with administrators, you work with staff. And what I always tried to do was go to work with, I think for me, an attitude that the glass was 3/4 of the way full. I never believed in that the glass is half empty, because to me that was a very negative way of looking at things. And I said, no, the glass is 3/4 of the way full. And if we want it all the way full, then let's dig in and let's do the work that it takes to happen. I understood my role not just as leader on campus, but it was also to develop leaders and to help our employees understand that you lead from where you are. It's not just the president, and that most people want to put you at if I use a triangle as a visual, they want to put the president or the CEO at the pinnacle of that triangle. And what I said is, no, you have to invert it, because our role is to serve you. It is to serve our students. It is to serve our faculty, our staff, our administrators. It is to get the resources that people need to do the work that we've asked them to do. It is to recognize that when someone applies to Prince George's Community College, there's something that they read in that position description and the research they did to say that might be a place where I want to work. And when we interview you, we are saying, this might be someone that we want to work here. So that's a collaboration. There was something about us that made you apply. There was something about you that made us ask you to join this group of individuals who are committed to providing post-secondary education. At the time when I left, 44,000 students. So a great responsibility, but one that I did not take lightly because I understood all of the people who helped me. You know, I wasn't on an island in this work and you know, whatever people read about me today. There were lots of people behind me, pushing me and pulling me. Well, I sit on a lot of boards. And I observe a lot. You know, generally I try, as I've already said, I try to use my voice when I think is going to make a difference. So so as I'm sitting there, I'm listening, I'm observing, and I recognize too that sometimes as boards, because we all tend to come from what some might believe are very powerful positions. We're CEOs, we're chief operating officers. You know, we have moved into the C-suite of our organizations. And sometimes we have a tendency to get in the weeds. We want to tell you how to do your work. And when in reality, we should be asking you strategic questions. You know, we should be talking to you about the why do you want to do that? What do you see on the horizon? What do you see as the future for the organization? Where can we in our roles help you get there? What do you need from us as boards of directors? And the president should be saying, here's what I need from you, but here's also what I need from you as the board. So that's the kind of work that I'd like to engage in, is to always remember that our dialogue must be elevated with the president. We only have one employee as a board, and that is the CEO or the president. All of the other folks at the organization work for that person. So it's, you know, my role is not to lean in and call the CFO, the chief financial officer, because I think that there was something that I disagreed with in his or her financial report. My role is to talk to the president about it and say, maybe next time we could get a little more information about X, Y, and Z so I can better understand the financial report, what it is that you want us to know. And then that can help me actually both prepare and pose the questions to you that as a board member I need answered. But I'm not really interested in how many widgets you make a day. What I'm interested in is, how do you think about the future of the company? How do you take care of the people who are part of that future? And how do you make sure that not only are you a good steward inside, but you're a good steward to the rest of the community? So I think a lot about things around social responsibility and where that lies, whether you're a for-profit or not-for-profit organization, that we all have a responsibility to leave an environment, whether it's about people or it's about climate, you know, if it's about social justice, if it's about food justice, if it's about equality, equity, inequities, inequalities, we all have an obligation to leave it better than we found it, better than what we went through as individuals. Mentoring in my own definition is not just about passing on the things that I've learned. And to the extent that I can say, look, don't cross that path or don't hit that wall if you don't have to. But I also recognize within the humanness of things that we all have to make our own mistakes. We all have to pick ourselves up and we have to learn from it. So for me, it's being someone who is more of a guide on the side. If there's anything that you need from me, don't ever be afraid to ask. If there's anything you want to know about me, don't ever be afraid to ask, because I'll share the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what I'm trying to do within the context of doing that is to say, pick out what works for you and what doesn't. Just push it off to the side. It may not work today. It may work differently. But you've got to be able to walk your own path, but understand that you don't have to walk it alone. And that's what it means to me, having someone that I could talk to about when I was disenchanted around the way things were going and what am I doing wrong? What could I do better? Am I not listening enough to those who are working with me? Am I not asking either enough questions or the right questions? That's what mentorship, both being a mentor and being mentored, always meant to me. That I could be true in my feelings. I didn't have to be strong. I didn't have to think about it from the perspective of, am I getting the right advice? Because I knew that I always had a choice. I could take it or I could leave it. And even as I talk to younger women today, I'm very clear that I grew up in a very different era. As a baby boomer, I believed in loyalty to the institution, loyalty to people. I'm probably a classic baby boomer if you look at all of the definitions. But what I also understood is that at some point when my voice became powerful enough that people would listen to it, that I had to use it wisely. So there are some who will call me and say, oh, but Dr. Dukes, if you say it, and I said, I'm very careful about what I say, because sometimes if you say too much, people stop listening to you. So I think about what's good and great in terms of the path that we're on. Where do I need to bring people in? And I bring people in all the time. I watch people and I'll say, and I laugh because in the team meetings, I would ask someone if they had a question. And the response would be, oh, no, I didn't have a question. I said, I don't know. There's something about your body language or that frown across your forehead that tells me that there's something in this conversation that might be either a little uncomfortable or that you think maybe we don't have enough information for the decision. So I just want you to share with us what you're thinking. I also was very clear about bringing people into the room who we might have dubbed as naysayers. No matter what we say, nothing will ever be right or appropriate. And I say, no, but we have to listen to them because maybe there's something we're missing here. And I will tell you on numerous occasions, I had the opportunity to respond. I never thought about it that way. It didn't occur to me that that's what's been going on, or it didn't occur to me that that's the way you interpreted what I said. So let's sit down and have a conversation about it. When I met with people, I never met behind the desk. I always came out and, I made sure I sort of had a living room setting, with the sofa and 2 comfy chairs, because I wanted folks to know that, we're on equal footing here. The presidency is a title. That's what I do. Who I am is what I want to bring to the work. So, when you think about mentoring and coaching and advising and influencing, it really is about wanting to give the best of who you are to someone who you see has potential, and they are growing in their commitment to the work, whether it's in higher education, if it's in corporate America. I have the opportunity to talk to men and women across the spectrum of how we work and why we work. And just to say, here's some things that I've learned, because at the beginning and end of the day, we're all people. We're all people. I don't believe that anyone is better or anyone is worse.